who bets 558, 559? You are the winner.
You
Take
get to do
that.
an extra PZE class, right?
I was taking actually side bets on could I make it start earlier. So hopefully that'll pay off for me. I
Yeah.
hope that's cool. So, Lori, what's happening? I was on vacation last week. How'd it go?
Oh, well, we all know how it went. We missed you greatly, Greg, and I'm very spoiled to have you doing all the tech. We found out it was a little more complex than we thought, but
I'm
had
gonna
some good
go with that. It's
conversations
really
on
not,
Facebook.
but yeah, you just have to practice it once or twice. But I'm gonna go with that. Yeah, only a
Yeah,
tech genius can make it work.
exactly, exactly. And low tech Lori was like rambling on. We couldn't get Google Docs open. We couldn't get everything. It was like the perfect storm of feeling like we were very unprepared. But I think we shared a little bit of good info, and we've had some really good conversations on the Facebook
Oh yeah,
page and in the chats this week as well. So,
yeah, I'm really happy about
yeah,
that. Just in getting caught up and catching up with that. But I wanted to touch on one thing. When I left, you were going to do a Hincapi Fondo, right? You went
I
to go do a
did.
gravel race, and I know how you finished because you sent me a picture of you on the podium. But why don't you give us the recap run through?
Yeah, it was, well, it was interesting because I was not planning to race. I am not in peak race shape at this point. I don't even feel like I know. We'll talk about peak a little later too, right? And what does that mean? But I, I was encouraged to go do this event and I thought of it as a training ride. We haven't been outside a lot. And in gravel, I think that's hugely important. The Hincapi events are great and super well organized and they
Was
had
George there?
multiple. George was there.
Oh, sweet,
Uh, Ivan Dominguez was there. George's brother was there.
cool,
So
cool.
they brought all the crew from South Carolina and put on a huge event in little tiny Merced, which is a very small rural town in Central California. And yeah, and this was an inaugural gravel event for them. They were supposed to have the event last year, and because of all the crazy California weather last year, they
Flooding,
couldn't do
yeah,
it.
flooding, yeah,
Yeah.
snow and right. I remember.
Well, and even this year it was pretty challenging. The course, they offered a grand version, which was 80 miles with 8,000 feet. I had originally registered for that, thinking I would have some outside riding under my belt, but I didn't. So I downgraded to the Medio, which was 60 miles with about 3,000 feet of climbing. And then there was also a shorter version, a Piccolo version as well. And that's a big an emphasis for the Hincapi events is to be able to offer multiple options of their routes for different fitness levels. I think that's great. Um, so yeah, the course itself was pretty awesome. It was on private farmland. So there were cows. There were like fuzzy little cows, not behind fences. That gets a little scary from time to time when they're right there on the
Cows right
course
out
with
in the
you.
open. I run into that from time to time here in Vermont,
Yeah.
and they're bigger than you think, aren't they?
And they're faster than you think. And there were times when I would be descending on a fire road and or a farm road, and the cows were running along with you. It was very. I was like, just stay where you are. Don't come to me. But I went into the event not thinking I was going to race it. I was just thinking, oh, it'll be a nice ride.
Right,
And
right.
of course, you can't take the race out of the girl.
The
So
competitive juices get going. I know how that is. You're like, wait a minute, this is a race. What do you
yeah,
mean I'm just going to ride it? No.
I know.
Put the gas down.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well,
Oh,
and
I
it
can
was
imagine.
interesting too because, in the last few years, a lot of people have left the road racing world and entered the gravel world. And so lots of my friends from the road racing world were there. And
Sweet.
I lined up right at the front like I typically will do.
Of
And I think
course.
that was the deciding factor for me. I started at the front, and the first hour or so, it started out neutral with a tractor as the lead vehicle, which was really funny, like a farm tractor.
Perfect.
And then that first hour, the pace was fast, but I sat right in the front of the pack. I was about third wheel back, so I just had a free ride for an hour. And in an event that was just under 4 hours, that was a huge advantage. So I was able to be at the front of the group instead of being at the back, and that
It's
made it
exactly where
and
you want to be. Yeah,
saved
yeah.
all the energy. So very well
Perfect.
executed race. We hit the first dirt section, and it kind of funneled down, and it got a little chaotic. There was what I couldn't see because of all the folks in front of us. It funneled down a little bit, and there was a huge hole on the left side of the dirt road, which I was on, and it was filled with mud and water. And my front wheel went in, and I somehow pulled out. I didn't go down, and I
Skills.
right, and I was also very relaxed. I think that made a big difference because I didn't see it coming. So I didn't panic. I just was in it. I pulled up. I ended up hopping up onto the grassy section next to the road, which was also muddy. And
Yeah.
I pulled so hard in my pedals because I was in a harder gear that I actually unclipped from my left pedal and struck my shin, and it hurt so
Oh, I've
bad.
done that before. I've got that scar.
Oh, I still have a big hole in my leg. It's shaped like a heart, which I think is
Yes.
great. But
Nice. Nice.
anyways, I kept it up. I was able to keep pedaling. I got back in the pack. The guys were
Nice.
like, "Whoa, mad skills!" And a couple guys went down near me as well. But I held it up, and then things got real at that point. And I'm up with the lead guys who are super fast, and things start stringing out on the first dirt climb. And I'm like, "Yeah, just pedal, see what you can do." And lots of, everybody's still in contact, but it does start to string out. And so we have a nice dirt climb, a descent. We have another little pavement section. I have pretty good dirt skills compared to a lot of roadies. So I was able to fly down the descents. Got to the end of that section and the grand course went one way and we went the other way. And all of a sudden I'm like, there's not very many people around anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah. So we hit our second climb, and there were two other women near me on our route. One was a girl who I've raced against for a long time. She's a national champion in criterium, so a really big sprinter.
Yes.
And the other girl I don't know. But anyways, another climb, another descent. We get to the last 13-mile stretch. It's a road section, and there was a guy who I'd been kind of leapfrogging with, and he hesitated. He was a few seconds ahead of me. He hesitated, and later he said, "I knew you'd be good to work with." And so the last 13 miles into town, we had this beautiful, perfect two-person pace line. He was in a racing kit from Reno, so I knew he had some experience, knew what to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And so we never said a word to each other. I sat on his wheel. As soon as he started fading, I came around, I pulled. As soon as I started fading, he came around and he pulled. It was like textbook. I was a little faster than him. I think the aerodynamics, we were in a headwind and I was shorter than him. So, and then about 2 miles to the end, we pick up two other racers, and it's the girl, the crit racer, and another guy. And it got a little messy. Whenever you integrate new people, it gets messy. And we came into town through the town square. We're chatting, and we get to the finish chute, and all of a sudden they all sprint. And I was like, "What?" And I didn't. I mean, I tried to sprint, but after 4 hours of basically being very close to threshold,
Yeah.
there was, and I have not trained to sprint.
It's a
There
very
was no
special
sprint.
physiology. It needs to be trained, needs to be practiced
Yeah.
ahead of time. Yeah, at the end of 4 hours,
Ex-
I tried in a race last year. My legs just said, cramp. No, you are
Yeah.
not sprinting to this finish.
Exactly. So I looked at my
Correct.
power file and there was like 3 seconds at a very high power. And then I sat
Right.
back down
That's
and
funny.
crossed the line. And the little girl puts a ribbon, a medal around my neck. And she says, "You're the first woman," which I had no clue. If I had known, but I wasn't the
Yeah.
first woman. My friend Amy, who has very short hair, so maybe she didn't look like a woman. But
Oh, that's fun.
so Amy and I finished 1-2 overall, which I'm not usually at 58 years old. I'm rarely on an overall podium.
Yeah.
I'm usually in an age group podium, but this course was very well suited to me too. It was climby, but not too steep, and that beginning section being flatter was really an advantage for me to be able to sit in. And so at the end of the day, Amy nudged me out of first by 3 seconds. So close.
Okay.
And she won so each of the climbs were timed as well. And I didn't really go for the QOM because that's not usually my style. And
Right.
she won the QOM. I actually got fourth overall, which again, I was surprised by that result, but all this good winter training.
For just showing up to do a ride and not deciding to compete until you line up, that's
Right.
I think that is very much to be proud of, and that's what you're
Yeah.
going for, the proud feelings. Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah.
Like that's such a good way to spend a day, and
Yeah.
the result helps it linger, and your efforts and everything, it just spreads it out. Here you are, 2 weeks out from the finish, still talking as if it were
Yeah.
yesterday. These events and competing and
Oh,
pushing
yeah.
yourself to the max and really figuring out ways that that accentuate your strengths
Yeah.
it's like a chess match sometimes, and it's so much fun.
Oh, absolutely. And it was very motivating because, when you spend an entire winter on the trainer, on the Peloton, and it just becomes work, and you're like, okay, I need to do, and I've been doing anywhere between 10 and 16 hours a week. So pretty big volume for this time of year on a trainer.
Yeah, yeah.
And now
Ooh,
I'm
that's a lot of
motivated
trainer.
though. Now I'm like, oh, okay, we got this. I want to be outside more. And of course, it just
Yes,
keeps raining. And I won like $500 worth of prizes. I was shocked by that.
that's
I won
even
a new
just yeah.
Wahoo and I won some tires and I was
Oh,
like, oh,
gravy. That's nice. You're like, wait a minute, I
yeah.
remember this. I love it. That's
So,
amazing.
so it was a great event. Yeah, it was definitely, and I would say anyone who's interested in gravel, add it to your list for next year. It is a really well run event in a beautiful course, and there's cows, and my bike was just like filthy.
Yeah.
It went to the shop immediately. I gave it a good hose down at the car
Oh,
wash.
you're
Not high
nice to your
power,
bike.
but
You're nice to your bike. Yeah. So
well,
it's the same here. I mean, I live in gravel bike heaven. I don't have an event, but I do go out and ride like that every day. And yeah, even if it's raining a little bit, I get out in the dirt. And I've told everybody, yeah, since I moved here to Vermont 3 years ago, I have not ridden my road bike since I got the gravel bike,
yeah,
and it's just a better, safer way to go. And yeah, if there's cows, it's even better. But I wanted to well, so that was your event. I guess I should share a little bit. I was out skiing. I was off goofing off. Yeah, no, not even that. Just taking the lift up and downhill. So good fun. I actually got to meet two Team Wilpers people who happened to be in the same place that I was. So they found me on one found me on Strava, and I knew one other one, a former client of mine, was going to be there. So I did get to meet some Team Wilpers people, and that was a lot of fun. Always fun to meet people in person. But I took that as my recovery week, and this is everyone's recovery week this week that we're in, Thursday of recovery week. And I just wanted to give just a quick recap of my thoughts, and maybe you have some more to add about what recovery week should be. I think to start, it's probably more about what you do off the bike than just riding easy. Would you say
hmm
that's true? I mean, I think if you can sleep better, more, if you can eat better, maybe less, maybe a different amount, but just good practices off the bike, keep the stress to a minimum.
stress
Feel
is a big one.
huge
And
one.
I always feel like when I get to recovery week, I also have a lot of things that I've been pushing away in my life, the errands, the things that add that stress to my life while I'm training. And during
Yes.
that recovery week, I just have that extra little bit of time that I can breathe and reorganize my life and do the things I've been putting off. And that reduces my stress level so much that aids in my recovery as well.
Nice. And by Thursday of the recovery week, yeah, you should be pretty much on top of things, on top of your chores and lists and stressors, that you can relax and feel like you are very much on top of your game physically and mentally. So, yeah,
Yeah.
stress, um, the mental component, I think, well, it all kind of relates. So I just wanted to touch on that. It's not just about riding easy, but
Right.
riding less. And there's more to it. And I know that you and I were back and forth a little bit today, and I totally agree. Like, you're not even opposed to putting a PZ Max like effort in a recovery week. Uh, is shortening up the ride, but yeah, because there's so much more involved in recovery week than riding
Yeah.
easy. So yeah, don't be
Yeah.
afraid if that fits, and sometimes it absolutely does, and I'll back you up when
Right.
that happens. uh,
Well, and just to clarify, we're not doing that for this challenge, but as we look at the next challenge, I threw a little PZ Max in there in the middle of a recovery week. And Greg was like, wow, that's an interesting choice. And I said, well, I don't like coming out of recovery feeling like I have stale legs. And you guys have all probably felt that. You're like, I want to feel refreshed. I want to feel a little antsy to get working, but I feel like if I go too long without a little bit of intensity, I just feel rusty.
Stale.
And
Good
so,
word.
yeah,
Good word. Stale. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
I
For
want my
sure.
legs to
So
feel fresh, not stale.
all right, cool. And there were some great discussions about recovery week. And so, speaking of discussions, I've got some shout outs. So let me just get right into it. Mary and I went down in chronological order. I think that's what Facebook was giving me. So Mary Spillane Newman, uh, What a welcoming group. Yes, Mary, we are a team. That's exactly what we're going for. So I'm glad that that is filtering down through, and you're experiencing that way. Lori, I've got a shout out for you actually for the lunchtime poll. Right, what is endurance? What does it mean to you? That was awesome. I love that kind of stuff. Get in there, ask a question. What does it mean to you? And get everybody involved and talking
Yeah.
about it. What fun, right?
Yeah. And I intentionally did not respond to answers. I love the fact that there's so much diversity in what we think of it. It's not just about our training, and maybe it's a type of training, but it's about a lot of other things too. And I thought that was awesome.
There was some really
So,
good answers in there, and I thought I would
well,
ask, all right, who Googled it? Who Googled it and just copied what you saw? Come
I
on,
didn't see
you
any of
guys.
that. Did you
No,
see any
oh,
of that? I don't think
they're
so.
so smart. Everybody's got
I
such
know.
good answers. So Jeff
Yeah.
Heim, I got a shout out for Jeff for his hashtag FTP TSD, right? FTP, post traumatic stress disorder. Yes, we've all got that, and I think that is a big topic that we're throwing around to get away from the stress induced by FTP taking. Heather Slater, what is your recovery? What's in your recovery toolkit? Very timely. This being recovery week, that's exactly what I would have posted, except for she did it better. So I just stayed back and let that discussion go. You guys jump in there and find the discussions and read them if you haven't posted, and post if you, yeah, get in there and participate. It's awesome. Mark Roy gave us a good one for your cadence and FTP discussion, and how an FTP test, and that led to the FTP PTSD. Just so much. It kind of all comes full circle. And just for the record, I didn't jump in there either. Brian Hammond gave a beautiful answer for what his thoughts are on how the FTP test is supposed to be taken, and should you be going over under. No, it is a sustained effort, and you do need to blow off the anaerobic beforehand to get a real result. And so anyway, good discussion there. Dora Suarez, sorry if I'm saying it wrong, and Maureen Mason for posts about the schedule conflicts. Yeah, when you are away for vacation or for whatever reason, I missed training all last week, so I'm actually repeating that week. I'm doing the sweet spot. I did the sweet spot and the FTP workouts that I had planned in week 3 during this week. So my recovery week was off the bike completely on skis, but yeah, I feel great this week afterwards. So that's how I handled it. But the discussions there, I think everybody knows kind of how to handle it. And if you don't, please feel welcome to start a discussion. It's a great group, and that's why we have a team. Speaking of workouts, can we do the next week's week 5 workouts? How about the class stuff go first? You want to go, Lori? Lori is frozen. Is that me or is that you? Here's where we get the problem.
Hey, everybody. It looks like Greg got kicked out. He froze and he's gone, and it looks like he's coming back. So we're just going to stay put for a moment until he's here. Let's see if we can see on Facebook what's happening. Ah, yes. Okay. So Greg has disappeared. Come back, Greg. It says he's going to stay. We'll see if I can keep us going here for a minute. I'm going to talk about the week 5 workouts, and we're going to jump back in with some intensity on the class schedule. And I would say, if nothing else, I want our goal to be, oh, there you are.
Yeah, internet took me for a little trip somewhere, so hopefully
Yeah,
we're still going, I think.
we are. I was checking out on FaceTime. I was just starting with the next week's schedule. So do
Yeah,
you want to
cool.
finish up what you were saying, Greg?
I was just saying, please tell us about next week's schedule. Perfect. You
Good.
didn't need me anyway. I could have gone to get a snack.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll need it when you see what we're going to do next week. Anyways, what I was saying is, I would like everyone to make it their goal next week to make the quality workouts high quality. So let's think about that. What are our most important workouts of the week? And then we have all of these other things that we do. Many of you do a lot of other training as well. And so if you can make your emphasis on the Tuesday workout, or sorry, wrong days, the harder workouts, the Monday workout, the Wednesday workout, the Saturday workout. Make those your focus, make those your goal this week, and everything else will just fall into place. And that's really important. So we're going to start the week with some Power Zone. And it looked almost like Ladies Week. I was like, what did I do here? Did I do a whole week of women? But I didn't.
Yeah,
So
Dennis
we're
and
going to
Matt are in there at the end, huh?
I know they are, but we're starting out with two of the new Power Zone instructors who both bring a very different energy, and I've enjoyed them both in very different ways. Tunde is, as you know, super enthusiastic. We've got a 30-minute Power Zone ride with her. Um, a little different than Matt, obviously. Big emphasis on movement and joy and music, and that's her thing. And I hope you all enjoy her. If you haven't taken one of her classes yet, I think she's just awesome. Wednesday, we've also got a 30-minute Power Zone ride with Hannah. And as some of you were commenting today, not only does Hannah really love Matt and the way he teaches, I think she's fabulous. I think she is an amazingly talented instructor, and I think you'll really enjoy it, especially as she starts adding more classes. So um, the rest of the week, we're going to look at Power Zone endurance. And we had a discussion in one of the chats about endurance and the difference between, say, Peloton endurance rides and endurance rides elsewhere in the world, which tend to be a little lower intensity, a little more emphasis on zone two. Rarely would we go into that zone three in a true endurance ride. And I want you to think about that as you are going into your rides next week. It's okay to ride at the bottom of the zones for your endurance rides. It's okay to ride them all in zone two for your endurance rides. And I would encourage you to do that because that's going to allow your more quality workouts to be better. If we're able to go easier and not accumulate fatigue, because that's what happens in zone three, you start accumulating fatigue. The training result is about the same. And oftentimes people in the Peloton world think, oh, more is better. Harder is better. And in the case of endurance, it probably isn't. So we don't want to accumulate the fatigue, get the long endurance rides. It should feel pretty easy while you do these rides. You shouldn't see a huge reaction from your heart rate. You shouldn't feel a lot of fatigue in the legs. So would you agree, Greg?
Oh, 100%. That's if yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll end up the
Enough
week.
said. Yes.
We've got 45 minutes on Thursday with Olivia. And you'll notice her TSS is a little higher, right? So use your best discretion. You don't have to beat Olivia. No one can beat Olivia. 60-minute Power Zone endurance with Dennis on Saturday, another 45 minutes of endurance with Matt on Sunday. And like I said, there are easier and harder, or might we say shorter and longer options on both Thursday and Sunday's rides. Weekly TSS will be 226, so a bit of a jump up from our recovery week. And then we're going to build right through to the finish. So that's next week.
Awesome. Sounds good. And yeah, absolutely well said on the endurance. Make it dynamic. You know, the PZE rides can be vastly different, but you have the ability to choose. And that's what I've been saying in the past, and use the timers to differentiate whether they are key rides or recovery rides or endurance
Mm-hmm.
rides. So yeah, well said
Yeah.
all around. For my no class option, my crew, I've got on Monday. So we're back off of recovery week now, and we're into the second half of this training block, which means we're back into intervals. So Monday, I've got a 30-minute tempo section. The ride is 45 minutes, but it's a 30-minute tempo section with 10 VO2 bursts. So don't confuse the tempo with a recovery period. It is a solid zone 3 section with bursts up above it, and you just come back down to. So anyway, it's a 20-second burst up at 115%, and then the zone 3 is at 80% if you're you're all using the timer. So that's ride 1. Ride 2 is Wednesday. It's 4 3-minute VO2 intervals with 4 minutes in between. So pretty liberal on the recovery. The recovery is at 70% of FTP, and the intervals are at 112% of FTP. Use your use your judgment. Everybody's correct VO2 is in fact a little bit different. So you can go little bit above if you need to, a little bit below 112% if you need to. Use your judgment, but give yourself a good strain that day. The other key workout Saturday is a 90-minute ride, 5 by 5. I did sweet spot, 90% of FTP, 5 minutes. Pretty, not extremely long for sweet spot, but then 5 minutes recovery at 70%. So 90%, 70%, 90%, 70%, 5 times. That is the workout. The other rides Thursday and Sunday are the less intense rides and endurance rides. I write them as 80-70. On Thursday is at 80%, 70%. And to your point, Lori, maybe that's even a little bit too intense. 80% does get up into officially zone 3. I like Sunday's ride better with 75%, just straight across, do a warm up, and then you're at 75% of FTP, and that's a good chance to get. Am I frozen again? Let's see if I go away. Am I
There,
back?
come back.
Oh, good. That was a short one. I was talking about my favorite ride, 75%. Shoot, I'm going in and out. Anyway, 75% of FTP. Take a look at your average heart rate for that section and compare it later on down the road. I can see we're freezing. Lori, take it. Come on, internet.
Okay, we're frozen again. Should we start a GoFundMe for Greg's Wi-Fi? Aha. Okay, I'm going to chat again. One of the topics that Greg and I wanted to talk about is peaking for a performance. And as we were talking about with him, Cappy, there he is. I know. It's okay.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah, my step up crew saw me struggling the other night. I'm not sure what's going on. It's just not, the internet is not great. I'm trying to get broadband brought in, and
It snowed. That's why. You
that
got
could
snow,
be. We had
Greg?
18 inches of snow, and yeah. Anyway, so the 75% ride. Take a look at your heart rate while you're doing it. I like to look at heart rate. That's as good a metric as any. Get on beyond FTP. For that 75% section, look at your average heart rate when you're done, and we can compare it again a month from now. See if your heart rate goes lower at that same output. Weekly TSS is going to be 261 for my week, and that's up from the recovery week at 179. So for the bigger picture, can I just touch on the bigger picture a little bit, and where are we in your annual training plan, if that's what you're doing? Where are we in the year, right? We're starting week 5 of training block 2, and some of us are aiming for a peak performance at the end of May, beginning of June. And I just want everybody to kind of let that sink in a little bit, that you're in a specific place and not training aimlessly, that we have really put some thought into these programs, and with an outcome down the road. So this does relate to what's happening next and what happened before, but also note the dynamic nature of the weeks to create a plan. You don't have to go hard all the time. In fact, it's counterproductive to go hard all the time. But when you do, make it count. Just like your point earlier, make it count when it's time. So note the dynamic nature of the weeks, not just the rides or the intervals, but the entire weeks are very dynamic. Week 5 starts 3 weeks of progressively more intense rides. Notice I didn't say harder. I just said more intensity. So they might not be harder and as difficult. In fact, I just wanted to lay out, if you can follow TSS, and I'll just say it, that for the winter challenge, who remembers the winter challenge? And weeks 5, 6, and 7 were pretty crazy. Matt and I came up with that schedule, and TSS's were 249, 281, and 314. and for mine, I'll just give you a advanced. It's 261, which is higher, 282, which is the same, but 296. So week 7 is going to be a little bit easier than the last week of the winter challenge. And that is with purpose and thoughtful, because my experience is that I come into an event that I'm trying to peak for overcooked, and I get carried away with thinking that more is better. And without fail, maybe once or twice, and I was a pro racer, coming into events, a lot of times I felt much stronger days or even a week or 2 weeks after the event because I was way more rested afterwards. I still had some good performances and everything, but I think my peak was was uh, was misjudged, and so leaving a little bit of intensity off the table as we're kind of approaching it is my intention. Um, so I want two things about that. Number one is that usually I come in overcooked, right? And so I wanted to avoid that. But when I did it right, and I've gotten better at it, it's something you need to practice and something you need to see what works for you, what your body responds to. And again, we talked about all of the off the bike things. When you do it right, man, it feels so good. It's not just on the bike. You're like, okay, yeah,
Right.
you can push the pedals stronger than you ever have. It's just easy and you're coordinated and you and the bike belong together. But even everything else, I get to sleep better. I get along with my family and friends better. I swear they like me better. Maybe it's just me,
You,
but I think,
you don't get cranky and taper? Come on.
oh, no way. I'm cranky right now.
Oh,
After doing hard workouts. No, I'm not cranky.
oh.
No, and I start feeling good, man. I feel like I can accomplish. Yes, the answer is always yes to my kid, to my wife. Yeah, just everything. I feel more confident, competent, just on all areas. So it's such a good feeling. Um, what do you think of it? What's your peak experience been like?
Peaking is hard. Finding that, so when we talk about fitness and freshness, right? So I don't want to go into an event stale. I felt stale for Hincapie, actually. I felt like at the beginning, my legs were like, ooh, this isn't good. Even though I'd done everything leading up to it that I should, but I was able to pull it around. But finding that right timing of when I actually hit the peak, which usually is slightly before my event, um, so maybe I'm going to give myself a little window where my actual event is going to be maybe a week into my peak period. But I find taper really hard. So if I'm looking at an event and I do need to taper for it, which triathletes taper a lot, bike racers don't because we race all the time. But if I have a really important event, um, I find I get really antsy and restless during that taper, and I do get cranky. And you start to second guess everything, like, shouldn't I be doing more? And usually the answer is no. As you said, I want to make sure that my legs are fresh. I want to make sure that they're not stale, though. So it's a very
It's a
Goldilocks kind
balance,
of
isn't it?
experience. Yeah. And it takes a long time to get it right as a coach, as an athlete. You have to, that's where looking at numbers and Training Peaks or WKO can give us some good insight as far as how does your body respond. And I also think everybody is a little different. So for some people, taking an extended break before an event may be their preference. And for other people, training relatively hard right up to the event without tapping themselves out and creating more fatigue is the secret. So some of it is personal, but also looking at those numbers and finding that sweet spot of where my form and my fatigue and everything balances out. And then it's magical.
That's awesome. Do you ever have a bad peak experience? I've had some where I'm like way off and just
Yeah,
super tired and cannot figure out why the bike won't work. And I had 2 breakfasts and I did too many hard
yeah,
workouts beforehand. And then 2 weeks later, I'm on top of the world, like way too
right.
late for the event.
I think also a lot
So
depends
still
on the
reached a
event.
peak, but just didn't time it right. Still felt
Yeah,
great a couple weeks later, but just didn't time it right.
yeah.
So
But again, that's where your annual plan comes in. So if I'm able to create this annual plan instead of just an event plan, I think, and fit the peaks into that. But yeah, I found there have been times when I've been on really good form and then I had to fly to go to an event and I felt like crap
yeah.
because I flew or I was in a
Oh, that's
hotel
hard.
or yeah, or suddenly I'm at altitude and I didn't allow the right window of time prior to the event. And those are really hard. as well. And sometimes you can't. We all have jobs, so we can't travel 3 weeks early to go to Colorado. So, yeah.
Exactly. So I want to talk more about the specific weeks leading up to a peak that I would like to follow later. But overall, it's an overreach week and a recovery week, and then a taper week or two. So kind of thinking about that. And now I do have a number of folks looking at June 1st in the Hincapie Fondo, which is different from the gravel event that you did. But I did have a couple of people ask for mileage recommendations. And here, I'm going to actually try something that has never been done on Facebook Live before and share my screen.
Share your screen.
Can you see that?
I can see it.
Okay. Can Facebook see it? We don't know yet.
I know it's coming up on Facebook. Let's see. I know that delay, just in case I say something bad.
Facebook is a little delayed, but anyway, I'm going to run through it. Yeah, there it is. So
There it
let's
is.
run through what I've got here. Is this is my Training Peaks calendar, and I'm going to go out here to June 1st and the Fondo. And if you're doing either a 52 or a 78-mile ride, and this doesn't take into it, this is very, very general and superficial. The week before should be a pullback week. So if you're doing the Grand, maybe 60 miles. If the Medio, maybe 35 miles. I like this to be your hardest week beforehand. And maybe that's a little bit off for some. Maybe it should be this week, but you have to experiment. But just giving a general clarification of what your mileage could be. Take a look at Grand and Medio. So this might be a 70 for the Grand. And the week before, do a 60. The week before that, do a 55. The week before that, a 45. So you see we're building up, this being the recovery week right here. The week before that might maybe a 55. Week before that, a 45. And now you're just getting started. This is next week already. So April 6th. If you're getting ready for a big event, June 1st, it is time to start getting some longer rides. And you would do this instead of the prescribed ride. Get out. Maybe you could do this structure within the ride, but if you're doing the Medio, it's 25. So if I scroll through this real quickly, this is something you can fall back to. You have the video. I'm okay if you direct message me if you want help with this. Just wanted to share that and see kind of what I laid out just very, very quickly.
And I would also add to that I want to look at duration in time typically, not necessarily mileage, because depending on my event, let's say I have a 100-mile ride with 500 feet of climbing versus a 100-mile ride with 500 feet of climbing. Those are very different durations. So look at the specific requirements of the event, try to match your terrain as much as possible in your long training rides, but I like to think of time. So am I doing a 2-hour ride, a 3-hour ride, a 4-hour ride, whatever? And what is my projection for the event? Is it my 6-hour century? So yeah, that's what I need to prepare
Absolutely. Good advice. So yeah, you can take these and convert them. This is just a superficial, very general, knowing that I'm talking to possibly dozens of people or more, not knowing where you all are. Your start
for.
point might be different. Your end point might be different, but this is just a general something to go by. Make it your own, as we've always said, just because I throw it out there. And yeah, actually, if I were your coach, I would go by time and
Yeah.
hill climb as
And I think
my athletes know.
The key point, though, Greg, is what is the percentage of increase of your long ride each week? What percentage do you plan in? Is that a 5% increase, a 10% increase? Not a 50% increase. We don't go from a 2-hour ride to a 4-hour ride. That's huge.
Correct. And it also depends on where you're starting from. Like you have from now
Yeah.
to get to June 1st is really just about 8 weeks. 9 weeks. What does it say down here? 9 weeks if you count this full week. So it's kind of creeping up pretty quickly. So if you haven't been getting outside already, like we're already at an hour and a half. So 2 hours, 2.5 hours to 35 miles or to 25 miles is not such a jump. It is maybe a big jump, but then the next week maybe is not a big jump. And the next week after that is not a big jump. So adding a half hour, 40 minutes here and there.
Awesome. Greg, I'm going to
Uh,
have to wrap up because I have a bike fit client waiting.
You better get to it. I think that's all. I think everybody just start thinking about what we're doing. I love all the discussions in the Facebook group, and super excited about moving forward and getting through the next 3 week build and getting everybody stronger. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Lori. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.